it's not semi-passive when you buy it, and unless you're buying it for a lot of money, right? Unless you're paying a really good multiple on it and actually buying it for what it's worth. And most people don't want to do that. They want to get it in, oh, I got this great deal on this laundromat, and you bought yourself a job for the next 5 years. And if you self-improve and if you hire the right team and if you put the right processes in place, if, then it can be semi-passive. And you can get it to a place to where you don't have to be there every day. Hello and welcome to the Laundromat Ownership Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Gollahon. Me and my business partner, Brian Henderson, own 3 laundromats in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area called Liberty Laundry. In 2025, those laundromats did $2.5 million top line revenue. But we are also the founders of the original point of sale system for laundromats, which is Wash Dry Fold POS. You might sometimes see it as WDF POS online. That's what they'll call us in the forums sometimes. But Wash Dry Fold POS and Liberty Laundry are the 2 companies that we own in the laundry space. And for this podcast, I'm actually going to be recasting my very first podcast episode. The thing that got it all started was the Dave and Carla Men's Laundromat Millionaire Podcast that I was a guest on. Most of the podcasts I do are about guests or topics. And on this podcast, it's really going to be them asking questions about me and my past. Without further ado, let's get into my interview on the Laundromat Millionaire Podcast.
Ian, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on the Laundromat Millionaire Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
For those that are watching this, Ian may look familiar to you, especially if you were just at the Clean show. If you're familiar with Wash Dry Fold POS, one of the software platforms that's out there, they had a pretty substantial booth at the show just a few months ago. But the truth is, we've known Ian and his business partner, Brian Henderson, for a while. In fact, Carla, we were just talking before we went live that Brian was the number 8th episode of the entire show, which was almost 100 episodes now.
Yeah, I had to go look it up. It was back May of 2021. So it's been a while since we had Brian on here and heard the whole Wash Dry Fold POS story and how it came to be.
So if it's been a while, I mean, it's 4 years old. It's a little bit evergreen, but I'm sure a lot has changed. And that's why we had Ian on here today is Ian and Brian as business partners have been up to some pretty big things. They've acquired a chain of kind of turnkey laundromats, increased the revenue substantially by $400,000 in just a couple years, and they're still running and growing Wash Dry Fold POS. So obviously a ton would change in the technology world, and even 1 year, let alone 4. And so this is a little bit of an update and a little bit of a telling Ian's story, which is, slightly different than Brian's story. But I'm sure you look for like a familiar face to a lot of people in the industry because you've been around a while. How long have you been in the industry?
I talked to about half the people at the last Clean show. So
yeah.
A lot of people recognize me.
Yeah. How long has it been since you've been in the industry? It's been 10 years?
Yeah, I started in 2016.
Okay.
So about 10 years.
Okay.
I guess maybe 9. But it's been a while. I've learned a lot, and man, has it been such a good thing. It's really changed my life for the better. I just can't imagine if I had not met Brian Henderson and gotten into laundromats, what would I be doing today? I don't know, but I don't think I would be, on the same journey of self-improvement and self-actualization that I've been on. And so it's really been a blessing for me.
Wow. Very cool.
Well, prior to getting into the laundry industry, was your background more in like software development? Is that how he got you into Wash Dry Fold POS?
Great question. It was actually in sales and marketing. And I was trying to sell him, or I did sell him some billboards for his laundromats.
Oh, really?
Just like some like little smaller billboards, more like eye level at stoplights, kind of around the laundromats. They didn't really work that great, but we became friends anyway. I mean, he was like, I'll try them. I gave him like a cheap deal on, let's just give it a shot. And I mean, maybe they paid for themselves, but they didn't have some amazing outcome. But me and him he's just such a nice guy. He's just one of those salt of the earth type of people. I've honestly never met someone just so honest and caring and giving. I remember when we first started working together, we went to go eat at a little local chain rib crib, and the lady didn't charge us for our drinks. And I grew up we didn't have a lot of money. So it was like, for us, like free sodas at a sit down restaurant. This is our
You're like,
birthday.
yes.
But Brian was like, oh, you didn't put the sodas on the tab. And she was like, oh, don't worry about them. He was like, no, we have the sodas. I want the business owner to get paid for the sodas we drink. So if you wouldn't mind putting them on the tab. So she took the tab back and put the sodas on. And I was like, wow, what a person that it would never even have occurred to me that that level of honesty and he's really an inspiring person to work with. So he's really, I feel like, helped me a lot on my own personal journey. So yeah, it's been great. But no, before that, I did billboards. I did sales. So I've been in sales since I was like 14. So
has that been your primary role at Wash Dry Fold POS? Was more on the sales side of it?
Absolutely. And even at Liberty Laundry, for the laundromats we've acquired, it really has just been about increasing revenue. And I started in sales because my dad was in sales. I thought, well, if he could do it, I can do it. And, so it's kind of a family thing. But also, I just haven't, a lot of other work is really hard. And sales has always been easy to me. You just talk to people. I like people. I like talking. And so it's been fun. And you do get to help people occasionally. And that's always good. And so, yeah, I've just been in sales. I think I remember like one of my first little sales thing was like, the door to door, you're selling like newspaper subscriptions or like kids, I was like 14. I couldn't drive yet, so I couldn't get a real job, but this guy would pick me up and we all got back to the van. And I think everyone else had sold combined. There was like 6 kids or something, but they had sold 3 and I had sold 12. And so it was like, okay, he had sold 4 times the rest of everyone else combined. So I guess this is what I'm going to do. And I've just been doing it ever since. So that's kind of what I like to do. And it's kind of moved more into management and marketing and growth, and not as much. I don't do sales calls every day like I used to, but I'm still in that space. Yeah.
So we definitely want to get to Wash Dry Fold POS, and we want kind of an update on so much has changed since we last had Brian on here. But before we get into that, let's hit a little bit on your laundromat journey. So you acquired 3 laundromats, basically a turnkey chain of laundromats back in 2022. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Liberty Laundry. So 3
Liberty
laundromats in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which is your hometown, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a couple of things I want to talk about with that is, one, I know you all increased revenue. Even though it was a turnkey store, you would think, okay, there's not much more you can do. I want to hear about how you increase revenue. And the other thing that I really want to hit on is the fact you all do this along with Wash Dry Fold POS tells me you do not work in your business, but you work on your business. So kind of how you manage that. So let's start with how did you increase the revenue from 2.1 million at acquisition to now 2.5 million? What kind of things did you figure out that could bring in that extra revenue?
Yeah, and we acquired it on April 21st, 2023. So 2023. So, we just looked at it and said, okay, what can we do to just improve the situation as fast as we can? Obviously, there were some machines that needed to be repaired, right? So getting all the machines working. And it wasn't that the previous owner was slacking. It's just that, how it is with distributors, that part's on order or whatever. And so we were like, look, the part's been on order for 6 months. You guys got to fix it or we got a real problem here. So we really tried to get all the machines fixed as quick as we can. The logo was out of date. The logo had a quarter. We did LaundryWorks. That was one of the other things we did, put LaundryWorks on all the stores, which we thought that would decrease the revenue. But turns out just getting rid of all the coins, people love the bonus. They like to get the $2 bonus when they add $20. And just making the place, we gave everyone a raise, right? All the employees got raises. We did hire more people. We have a facilities manager that his only job is now just to go around and fix everything as soon as it breaks. And when you have 3 stores, there's a lot of things that break. And so, just putting in automated systems. But then one of the big things, my background being in billboard advertising, I noticed on like the outdoor signage, it was not designed to actually sell. And so I redesigned all the outdoor signage to actually bring people in. And so if you look at some of the increased revenue, a lot of it is comforters, because I put comforters, on all the, self-serve comforters. Like, you've only got room for like 3 words. And one of those words should be comforters at a laundromat, because the self-serve people you're going to get because they need a place to go do laundry. But there's a lot of people that have washers and dryers at home, but they're not big enough for king size comforters. And so we get a ton of comforters. They're so easy to wash, right? They don't take a lot of time. And I think we charge like 40, $50, per comforter. So it's a great revenue stream. So just improving the outdoor marketing, the outdoor signage was really good. And then honestly, just offering a better product. Again, the last owner was great, and he grew it to, that 2.1 million. It was about 700 per store, roughly. And it had just kind of plateaued there, and he was kind of more focused on, he's retiring, he was ready to get out, and I totally get it. And he had built it to where he was happy with it. And then when we got it, we were just like, what can we fix? What can we improve on that we've learned talking to other laundromats over the years? And yeah, it turns out we were able to actually, I was just thinking about this earlier today. I work at it a few hours a week. I was just over there fixing a bill breaker because we still don't let people into the bill breakers, but everything else we have employees for. And Brian probably works on it 10 hours a week. So I think between the two of us, we probably do under 20, and it is 2.5 in 2025. And then the net profit is at least 40%. So
nice.
And it's an S corp. So for a business that you don't put a lot of time into, we have kind of, people call it semi-passive, but it's not semi-passive until you really put the work in to make it semi-passive. And so that's what we've done, but we are very much process people. And when we first acquired it, that first year, we were working on it 40 hours a week just to get all the processes in place. So that we could step back and focus on the software company again. And that's what we've done. And that's really, that's what excites us. But the laundromats have really been, it's such a great learning experience, not only managing people, but, I've been serving laundromats since 2016, but it's quite a different thing when you get that phone call and it's on fire, so it's been an experience.
Yes,
so.
it is.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the fires, but I want to back up because you hit a lot of things that you did to help increase that revenue. So first, can we back up and talk about the payment system? I know you said that, so you integrated LaundryWorks into all 3 locations, correct?
Yes. And yeah, what that means is we took away the coins because obviously emptying those little boxes and the hoppers, that is so much of the non-semi-passive part of the business is managing those coins. So we put LaundryWorks in all 3 stores right away, and we've loved that product. We actually just built a much deeper integration with them. We can talk about later on the software side. But we've been really happy with that. It's really taken a lot off our plate.
So do your customers have to purchase a LaundryWorks card to use the laundromat?
To start the machines, they do. And so we were a hybrid store where you could do coin or card. And so we thought that taking coins away would reduce the income. And that's what every laundromat owner, our people are all coins, And I'm sure that's true in some areas. But we had about half coins and half card. And so you would think that some people would just walk away. But if they come in with coins and they're like, wait, how do I start the machine? That's what employees are for. Train your employees to go be like, oh, you've got coins. Great. Come on over to the register. I'm going to get you this $20 bill here. And if you put this in, you're going to get 22 back and machine starts. Oh, wow. So it's so much better than coins. And then guess what? They don't spend all $22. So they have to come back to your store. And so it does build loyalty. And then, it's honestly, it's just been better system for everyone. So yeah, I do think that has increased revenue actually, and increased loyalty as well. And people just like to load bigger balances because they get that bonus money.
Well, and I'm not sure when these were built, but was it about 20 years ago? Is that about right?
The oldest one, yeah.
Oldest one was about 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
And you acquired them about 2.5, 3 years ago. So,
that's right.
It's a very different time in the industry. We got in the industry in 2010, and those would have been built roughly 5 years before that, at least the first one. There was a very different time in the industry back then where, our industry has evolved an awful lot just regarding technology. So there was a better argument for coins when we got in the industry 15, 20 years ago and when these stores were built. And I think I know for us, that's kind of run its cycle. It sounds like you guys felt like it had run its cycle too. But I do want to clarify on this that Brian, which is your business partner, right? You guys own these together. This was Brian's family. that built these, right? And he started
Yeah.
out in the industry as I don't know if it was an operations manager, but I know he worked there in some way. And that's kind of if you go back to the episode 8 we were talking about, that's kind of his story into the industry. Is they had a problem in these stores with a POS, and back then none of the softwares and POSs really existed. So Brian was solving a problem for himself. So I find it interesting that he took that journey in in his younger years, and not that he's not young now, but and then he evolved into Wash Dry Fold Pickup and Delivery, or I'm sorry, Wash Dry Fold POS, and did that
Mhm.
for, do I want to say 8 years, 5, 8, 10 years, something like that. And then he's kept that business going with a team that you all have built and your
Mhm.
partnership. But now he's gone back to owning laundromats, or I guess gone to owning laundromats by acquiring his family's chain. That's a really interesting journey.
Yeah, the way his dad put it to us was, "I'm selling the laundromats this year, whether you guys buy them or not." So
Okay.
for us, it was like, he always wanted to own the family business,
Uh-huh.
and he didn't start as the ops manager. He started as just, running
An attendant.
running the desk,
Yeah. Yeah.
just as an attendant, and kind of moved up and really self improved to get his management skills up there. And so it's funny, when we bought the laundromats from his dad, most of the management team he had hired, or they had
Interesting.
hired people and they were still on board, so he had hired
Uh,
them, and then they had hired the other, like one of our managers, Amber, got hired by one of the managers, Becky, that he had hired. So it was funny that, yeah, he didn't really have to introduce himself, because he had really helped build that company
Right. Yeah.
to what it was.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, even with the point of sale side of things, and I do think this is important for the conversation in general. It's not like, hey, we can't find a good point of sale system, let's build one. It was more like, the orders are getting messed up. They're
Mhm.
getting mixed around. We're getting too busy.
Yeah.
Things are getting lost. People aren't picking up their laundry, for like a week. Like,
Mhm.
how do we get it back off the shelf?
Yeah.
Of course, employee theft, which you never think you have until you realize you do.
Mhm.
And so there was all these individual problems. And I think Brian was really early in the industry about implementing technology
Mhm.
in the laundromats to help solve those problems. It just so happened that the point of sale system, that's the computer on the desk
Mhm.
that can put the systems in place to help you solve all those organizational issues. So that's kind of how we got into theirs. He
Mhm.
tried, I think, 12 other systems, and maybe some were built more for um, dry
Mhm.
cleaners, or some were built more for whatever other kind of store. And eventually it became clear, especially if we were going to integrate with all the major brands like Laundroworks and Alliance and Speed Queen,
Mhm.
we really had to have our own platform to build everything that we needed to run our stores,
Mhm.
or to run John's stores that are now our stores.
Yeah.
So
So
it ended up
this
working out for
this may
everyone.
be a obvious question, but I'll ask it anyways, just for the people that are watching back at home. But what made you and Brian want to acquire the stores? I mean, his dad said, "I'm selling them, whether you're buying them or not." I mean, you could have just as easily been like, we got enough on our plates with our team and our company. What made you guys want to buy those?
Well, that may be what I have said. That might have been my
At the time?
thought initially. Yeah, like, we've got a lot on our plate,
Right.
you realize. But
You were both actually aware they don't run themselves. Some people think they do.
right.
You guys do
I
better.
was like, you want to do other stuff besides work, right?
Right.
And we were going to acquire another business with even more employees, because
Yeah.
the software business you can run pretty lean, but the laundromats, I think we've got 25 employees on staff at any given time
Uh-huh.
between the three stores. And so it's actually in some ways it's a more complicated business. It's more complicated in some ways, it's more simple in others.
Mhm.
But as far as managing personnel, there's more personnel to manage, and more overhead in general, and more asset heavy as well, of
Mhm.
course. But I think, Brian and I always talk about, what kind of vehicle do we want to be in, right? And I think people ask themselves that at some point in their lives with their careers, of, where do I want to end up? What's the destination? And, if I'm walking, do I need to get on a bike to get there? Do I need to be in a car? Do I need to get on a plane? And, for us, the destination was, well, we want to have, semi-passive income for the rest of our lives, even into retirement. And you can't really run a software company into your 60s, or at least I haven't seen it done at the startup level, maybe if it's an established software company. But for us, this was kind of the business that we want to own forever. And Wash Dry Fold POS is the business that maybe we'll own forever as well. But we are really aggressive about hiring young talents and, putting people there that we know can run the business without us, for the software side of things. And then for the laundromat side of things, I think we're actually the younger people sometimes, and it's more about our ladies, our team of ladies that we love, and but we do have people of all ages. But I think for us, it was more of a looking at our own personal portfolios and do we want laundromats in them, and having talked to 3,000 laundromat owners, we knew it was a good business, and we knew it was a good thing to buy. It was a good investment. We knew it wasn't semi-passive, to your point, but also we knew how good Liberty Laundry was run and staffed, and we knew that it was already pretty turnkey, like you said. And when you've already done the due diligence on something like that, it makes it kind of hard to pass up an opportunity like that. And I think for Brian, it was never a question. He was always going to run his dad's laundromats one day, and so I think this was just the right time for everyone.
So I want to address something real quick before we get into the rest of the story on both sides of the equation. So you've used the word semi-passive several times already, and everybody's ears are tickling a little bit right now, because whether you
They're
say,
like, it's not semi-passive.
I know, I can see people at home freaking out, and
I
I would love for you to expound upon that. And I know what you mean, because I mean, Carla works a couple hours in the business doing some bookkeeping in our Queen City Laundry. I literally work 2 hours a week in the business almost every week. It's really not that the business doesn't need us to run it. It's that it needs somebody to run it. And if you grow the business enough, as far as the margins and the net profit, things like that, that there's a misconception in the industry that there aren't enough profits in the business for the owner to step out of the business and hire layers of management. We are proof that's not true. You are proof that's not true. But I'd love for you to just expound upon that a little bit more. And I wonder, how semi-passive was it when you bought it versus what you've done today? Because it sounds like you guys did an awful lot to make it more semi-passive than maybe what you acquired.
I think a lot of times what people mean when they say they're going to make it semi-passive, or what we've seen a lot, is they buy it and then they treat it like a vending machine, right? And I'm not saying that's where it was when we bought it, but I do think if you're not actively investing, right, and I know, CapEx, no one loves it, but you have to be investing in equipment and in the buildings and in the people, and in the processes and everything. If you're constantly doing that and working on the business, like you said, you can eventually bring it to a place where it doesn't function. It's not like owning a stock, but it's certainly not like working the desk at a gas station or something like that. And I do think the industry, like you said, it has shifted. I think the sales pitch you hear for buying a laundromat is, you just buy it and it's going to be in your portfolio. But typically it's a journey to get to that. And luckily we kind of found the journey had mostly been done. And that's one of the reasons we were willing to buy it, because we knew it wasn't going to be like, hey, you've got to turn this hole in the wall into this huge business. It was already 2.1 million is not shabby for 3 laundromats. But yeah, to get it to a semi-passive place, we did have to work some with the management team. We did have to hire more people. We had to fix a lot of things. We had to put a lot of processes in place, because there was a lot of cash handling when we bought it. And that cash handling is probably the hardest thing to outsource, because it's just thousands of dollars in cash, right? And you don't necessarily have a lot of employees that you want to put in that situation to have their hands on what feels to them like life-changing money. And so, I think, I think it's not semi-passive when you buy it, and unless you're buying it for a lot of money, right? Unless you're paying a really good multiple on it and actually buying it for what it's worth. And most people don't want to do that. They want to get it in, I got this great deal on this laundromat, and you bought yourself a job for the next 5 years. And if you self-improve and if you hire the right team, and if you put the right processes in place, if, then it can be semi-passive. and you can get it to a place to where you don't have to be there every day. But I know when John bought, or when he built the first store, he was sleeping there.
I remember that
for a little bit of time. Like, I mean, he was there all the
Worked every
time.
hour it was
Wow.
open. Yep.
So he kind of did the hard part, you know, and he didn't have the financial infrastructure that we had going into it, because we already had a really good business with cash flow. You know, he had just basically just transitioned away from the recording industry, or the I think it was a disc jockey, and then all that consolidation happened. And so, you know, he just needed to provide for his family. And so he just put every penny he had into an SBA loan to get it going. And it was nowhere near semi-passive when it started. But he was able to build a really good asset for his family, and then really able to kind of secure and exit that asset. Even though he sold it to his son, he still has, you know, now the cash in a trust, right? And then his son is also, you know, now can manage the asset, and we plan to, you know, leave it to Brian's kids as well. So it's kind of stayed in the family, but it's also been able to be realized as an asset that's no longer at risk. You know, when
Since we rarely have time on these episodes to get into the nitty gritty, and as much or as little as you'd like to share, I'd love to hear some of the detailed minutia of what you all did when you and Brian acquired it to what it is today. You talked about we hired some people. What does that look like? Did you hire a director of operations, like as much or as little, you know,
what's the hierarchy of your team?
Yeah, what does the team
you
look
talked
like
about to be semi-passive, part of it's building the team. Part of it too that you know that Brian's dad didn't have is the technology, like the switching to LaundroWorks. A lot of that makes it easier to become semi-passive. So there's that too. But what kind of team hierarchy do you have in place where you all can step aside?
Great question. I think this really is the secret sauce. And I think people don't even realize like what owning a laundromat, like what even the asset and labor structure behind it should or could be. So, you know, let's say you've built yourself a nice laundromat and you've spent, you know, $500,000 on the build out or more. And then your machines, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Those machines are. And if you do not have them monitored, they will get abused. They will get broken. You will have naked people in your laundromat doing drugs. Like, that's just what happens in a laundromat that's not attended.
I'm assuming you all are fully attended.
Fully attended. It's like, why pay more insurance to have a higher risk portfolio? It's not really cheaper. And the thing is, you know, if you look at Liberty Laundry in Oklahoma, or Liberty Laundry OK is the website, we have hundreds of 5-star reviews. Well, if you look at one of the semi-passive, like, you know, where they're just not working yet at laundromats, you know, if someone can't get the machines to work, they're going to give you a 1-star review. And so you have to have people there to help them with the machines. So you need to watch your assets. You need to have people there so that you don't get bad reviews and really get that self-serve revenue going. Well, those people need to pave their own salaries while they're there. The way to do that is wash, dry, fold. So you get the wash, dry, fold, the drop-off side of things going. And that way, that's not actually a drag on the business. So even for us, and we do have, you know, probably higher payroll costs. In fact, I even printed out some financials, like in you know.
Can you say, do you know what percentage of your revenue goes to payroll?
Yeah, so just for September alone, it's about 25%, right? 25 to 30%. But September alone, we did 200,000 top line, and then about 65 went to payroll. And so, and that's about the same thing that we did in Wash Dry Fold. We had about 65,000 in Wash Dry Fold as well. So the Wash Dry Fold offsets the payroll, but it builds the whole business, right? It's not like you're going to get to, you know, our Delaware store is going to do something like 700,000 in self-serve this year. You're not going to get to that unattended. There's just no way. You need attendance there. And so do you want to pay for the attendance out of pocket, or do you want them to pay for themselves with Wash Dry Fold? So that really is how you think of the structure. And so you've got the attendance on the bottom. When you think of like a hierarchy, you got the attendance. You need every store fully staffed full time. Then you have the there's a million reasons why, but to keep riffraff off, to keep your insurance down, there's so many good reasons. But then above them, you do need store managers, because you don't want to be talking to those employees about like their schedules and their surgeries or whatever. Just you should not be doing that with your time.
That's a full-time job.
Yeah, that's a full-time job right there.
Yeah.
So, and I've done that job before I got in the laundry industry. Don't really want to do that again. So, you need managers then to manage each branch, and they're really responsible for, keeping efficiencies, making sure everyone's trained right, making sure everyone's, even just we have to measure the right amount of soap when they wash something, and, how do they greet people when they come into the store? We don't really, it's not like some loosey-goosey thing. We have a script for everyone. We have a training process that they go through. And so each store manager really is responsible for their staff and for being on the floor. And if someone calls in, they call into that manager, and then that manager has to find someone to cover them, or they have to cover it themselves. And we have really good managers that do that. But then if you have 3 of those managers, guess what? Managing those 3 managers is also a full-time job.
Yes,
and what about the supplies for the store? Are they all going to make their own supply runs? Probably not. And so we have an operations manager above those 3 managers, and she helps manage them. If they have any questions or issues with employees, she helps them do that. And like, for example, one of the things that in the nitty-gritty of what we've changed, I was actually talking to our ops manager, Becky, great lady. And, one of her concerns was every single hire she makes. So she does every interview. And when we bought the business, she did every single hire and interview. And she said, well, they're calling me about like these issues they have because they think I can help them. So they're trying to sidestep out of the hierarchy, right? And so I just said, look, if you want to interview every person and hire every person, you're going to be every person's boss. And that's 25 people. You don't want that. You have to train your managers to do all the hiring. And I did help her with the process. I didn't say, just go figure this out. But we helped her train the 3 managers to all be hiring managers. So now they all hire their own people, which means if someone quits, guess whose problem that is to now hire that replacement? It's the manager's problem, which it should be, right? And so that's like some of the legwork that you do to make sure the hierarchy, I don't ever talk to like employees about their jobs ever. That is not where I want to be. They need to be talking to their managers. And then their managers need to be talking to the ops manager. And then if some crazy escalation happens, then she can come talk to me. But we've put that hierarchy in place, and we've been really deliberate. Steve Jobs talks a lot about how many things do you say no to every day, and having a successful business is about saying no to a lot of things, And, we say no to doing our own, work schedules. We don't want to be in the itty-gritty of that. And to do that, you have to figure out how you're going to manage people and how to put structures in place. Now, the hire that we've made that I think has made the biggest difference, that I think John probably could have made years ago if he had known how great it would be. We have a guy named Trevor who's our facilities manager. And so all he manages is not people, he manages the facilities. And so anytime anything goes wrong, which a million things break in a laundromat all the time, they're constantly breaking, he's constantly fixing it. So, there was when Brian and I were on the plane to the Clean Show, there was some leakage at one of the water heaters, and we had, it was a big, expensive replacement, but he had to call the people to get them out there and get the quotes and get it all done. And it was all taken care of by the time we got back in town. Same thing with the roof. The roof was leaking just recently. And so we've got to get this, treatment done on the roof. They're going to put this layer of something on the roof. Well, you had to go meet people out and be up there on the roof with them and all that. He did all that. And, I won't say exactly what we pay him. He probably wouldn't appreciate that. But, I feel like, it's a good job. It's a good paying job. But then when you look at it of what percentage of it of 2.5 million is it, it's a pretty low percentage, but it takes off so much work on more plates. And he's a hire that, and he was thinking about moving back home. He's from another state. We did, luckily he stayed, but, we wouldn't have been without him for like a week. We would have been like, we have to get someone else in that role immediately. Like it's a must have role once you have it. And I realize that is hard to do with one store. But as you scale, these are the type of things that, you can either work at it full time and do nothing else, or you can have someone else do it for you, which is what we would recommend. And that's what's worked well for us. And he's better at it than we would be too. He's a really handy guy. He can fix a lot of stuff. Fixes the tile when we need to replace.
I have a ton of people that ask me in my coaching calls and things like that, where did you find these people? And they will ask like broad categories, because our model, our org chart is very similar to yours, only we have about double the people. But people are constantly asking, where did you find your GM, your assistant GM? Where did you find your ops manager, et cetera, et cetera? What was your situation like with that? Because this was a position that didn't exist. So I don't know if you were just outsourcing this to plumbers and distributor service guys, and John was doing the work or whatever, but where did you find this individual, and what were some of the qualifications you were looking for? Because I think a lot of laundromat owners, if they can afford something like that, they wouldn't be real sure where to even start with what skills do I need other than, just a handyman.
So for our current facilities manager, we really lucked out because he had been just a really good employee at the store. And had showed up on time and showed interest on, well, what's wrong with the hoppers? I can, maybe I can fix that. And so we knew he was a reliable individual. Now he didn't know how to fix washers or dryers yet, but we just trained him. And luckily, Brian, because like you said, when you do own 3 stores and you don't have facilities manager, it's up to you and your son, right? So Brian really was, and Sean were both, fixing washers and dryers or getting the distributor. And so once we hired him, we would have him shadow any fix. And if the distributor comes out, he shadows them. So I do think, whoever's doing it now is essentially the person that then trains whoever you hire. And he didn't have any expertise in the field when we promoted him, basically from an attendant to the facilities manager. It was a good pay increase for him as well, and a salary job. But he really showed that he was worth it, and really showed that he was willing to learn. And honestly, we've done that with a lot of our employees. We've started them really lower level and then moved them up into the organization. And that's something that's really cool when you have, 5 or 10 families that, their main income earner, you've built from, someone who maybe you hired at, $14 an hour or something like that. And now they're a salaried employee. So, I think we got lucky on that. For the software company, we don't really have any like entry level employees that we can move out. So for Wash Dry Fold POS, I've had really good luck with Indeed, and I have trained some of my managers on Indeed. Of course, we get it through the website, and I know you guys offer services to help you get your website up. If the website is done well, and Apply Now is in the right spot, you will get a lot of applications there. So that actually that alone has paid for us redoing our website. And that's one of the things we did when we bought the stores. We totally redid the website to be much more, user-friendly and more modern and all that. I hired that out. I don't want to be doing that. We just paid it. And I've built websites before, but that's not what I want to be spending my time doing. So we hired a company to do that. And we have noticed probably a 10x increase in the applications that we get through the website. So that has been huge for the laundromat. And then for the point of sale company, Wash Dry Fold POS, I use Indeed, and I'll go through like 100 applications. If there's any red flags, I'll just delete it. No. But you get 100 applications. There's probably 20 people you want to talk to. So you either call them or you send them a link. That's what I like to do, is just send them a link, schedule an appointment with me. Most of them can't get that done. And if they can't get that done, there's going to be a lot of other things they can't get done too. And if they get that done, half of them don't show up, or you call them and they're like, what? Who is this? And if they can't remember an appointment and they can't remember what they applied for, it's going to be a lot of other things that they have a hard time with as well. And so that's really how I qualified. You start with 100 or 200 applicants, you get down to 20 that you reach out to, and then you get down to maybe 10 that you'd actually talk to. Then you do maybe 3 or 4 in-person interviews. And once you've got it to that point, it's pretty clear who you need to hire out of those 3 or 4 people. And then my advice one thing that I'm big on it is, as soon as you know you want to hire that person, just call them and offer them the job. Like, don't wait and be like, oh yeah, I need to call. It's like a week later, they might already have a job. You know, people appreciate it when you're fast and you're direct, and you don't play any games. You just try and find the right person, and you have to get efficient. And sometimes it's hard to have the discipline to throw out applicants that, oh, well, that one thing I don't like. Well, then just get rid of just don't call them then. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to find the right people for the job. And to do that, and applications are not expensive. Indeed, I think we pay like $1 an application or something. So it's like, just get 100 and you'll find the right person. So that's been my experience on those things.
Do you also cross-train your staff so that they can work in any location? Because that's one thing we do with having 3 locations. We have 4, but with having multiple locations in the same general area, do they borrow attendants from each other? Do the managers ever work in other stores? Are the processes all the same in all the stores?
Yes, the processes are all the same in all the stores. The managers typically stay in their own stores, right? So that's kind of their turf that they really need to be responsible for. But then the attendants, sometimes, they might move across town, right? Our laundromats that are furthest from each other, there's one in the middle, so it's kind of like a triangle. But so, yeah, if this person moves to over here, even further over there, they might want to change stores or whatever. So we do have that, and that does work well if, if somebody calls in sick or whatever, having all those processes in place and posted. But for the most part, people tend to stay at their store that is close to them, or that they, know the people. And that's what all the managers figure out, is who's going to work well. These 2 people just do not get along, but they're both good employees. Let's move one of them to a different store. And so it kind of gives you some flexibility there, putting those processes in place.
How close are your stores together? Are they, 15 minutes apart or 30 minutes apart, or?
Yeah, so it's I would say from one, and I did this today. I had to go get some money from one of them and stock the bill breakers at the one that was all the way across. So I'm like right in the middle. So it was like 10 minutes east and then 20 minutes west. So it's like 5 miles. Yes, so it's probably like 10 miles in between the two, which is about how big Tulsa is. Tulsa is about 10 by 10 on a grid. So
okay.
So we're kind of like on the outskirts of town.
So Broken Arrow, which is that a suburb of Tulsa, I guess?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Big fans of Tulsa. Like big fans of Tulsa King, by the way. I don't know if you guys hate this show or not. But
Brian loves
Side
it.
note.
Brian Henderson watches it.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that actually did some of the sound. I have a friend who's a sound engineer. He does a lot of the films and TV shows that come through, and he worked on that one and some of the other.
Oh, wow.
Netflix has done a few different shows based in Tulsa now as well. So he's worked on some of those, but it's not for me, but I'm glad you're enjoying it.
When we first started watching it, we thought it was pretty cheesy, but I think we got sucked in after
I don't
a
know.
while.
This season's not going very well.
Yeah.
It's kind of off the rails, but we'll see. Anyway.
Carla might have to edit that out, but sorry, you said Tulsa, and I immediately am seeing Sylvester Stallone. Yes. Anyway, back to laundromats, Carla.
There is one last point on that. There is no show about Tulsa or Oklahoma that doesn't paint us in the worst light possible.
Oh, really?
Like Jen and I tried to watch a show just last night. There's like some new shows, a lot of famous actors. It takes place in Tulsa. Just right away, it's just like, oh man, it just goes right at like just the normal Okie person. They just hate us,
Yes.
So like every show, it's just about how terrible we are. We're just totally normal people. But
I'm from Kentucky, and Kentucky's the same way.
Very
like
big stereotype.
Every show, it's a stereotype of this hillbilly.
They're always drinking moonshine and in the back hills, and it's like that
you don't
does
have to
exist.
Guess what they think
but
of
it's
us.
not the whole
They're
state.
not fans.
Yeah.
That's right.
So one thing I did want to touch on briefly is, so your entrance into the laundromat industry apparently wasn't too smooth, because I hear you had 3 fires.
In the first 12 months, 3 fires.
If you didn't know the previous owner, you'd have thought you'd been sabotaged.
Oh my goodness. It had been like years and years since the last dryer fire.
Yeah.
And these 3, 2 of them were like the 2 worst ones they'd ever had in the 10 years. And
were the vents not cleaned properly, or was it user error?
We are crazy about that stuff.
Okay.
Everything gets cleaned, everything gets maintained, everything's on a schedule. I mean, everything gets cleaned every night, but then you also have the more deep clean stuff like that. Everything was clean. So with the first one, it was actually just a comforter, and the feathers it turns out feathers and open flame, because if you go behind those dryers, those stacked units, there's open flame behind them. I guess all of them, but you can see the open flame in the stack units. And I guess it was shedding feathers, right?
Oh.
And she put it on there in high, and she left, which you're not supposed to do. We have signage up, but she put it on high, she left, and the feathers were coming out of it, and one of them got on fire, so that one was a pain and a lot of cleanup. But luckily, we didn't even have to replace that dryer. We were able to salvage that unit.
wow.
And,
because you're attended, and the attendant saw it, even if the person
Probably would have
didn't.
lost the whole store if you were unattended.
that is true. And they were actually able to put that one out, I think, with the fire extinguisher. Although it was tough. It's tough to put out a comforter on fire with a fire extinguisher. So it was a big fire. But the second one was way worse, because the second one was a lady. You know how people like just cram clothes in a washer for no reason? Like it doesn't even get clean that way.
Yep.
Yes.
She was doing that with these spa towels were nail polish remover.
Oh, geez.
Soaked in nail polish remover. And so they didn't get clean in the washer, if she even washed them, which, is a self-serve. So, you're supposed to. But when she put them in the dryer, they were still soaking in propellants. They were still soaking in alcohol. So, yeah, it turns out that also is flammable. And that was a bad one. The fire department had to come out. We couldn't put it out with a fire extinguisher, had to evacuate the building.
Wow.
And I remember driving up, because I got the call. I remember driving up, and I could
feeling.
smell the smoke like a block away. And I was like, this is not good.
Terrible
This is really
feeling.
bad. This is like my worst nightmare. And we just put in, we just put in a lot of capital, into it. And so it was very stressful. But all that we lost was that, well, I guess that brings me to the fire, the third fire, which is that fire was so bad in that second one that I guess some of the lint or something, some piece of cotton got into the gas of the unit, the gas valve in the unit on the bottom. So I guess when you have a fire like that, little stuff gets everywhere. And so even though we had it cleaned and inspected and all that, it was like in some kind of gas pipe. And then as it was running, that same unit, that was the only one that wasn't actually a customer's fault. It just caught on fire because it put out like whatever lint, and then it's right there by the flame. And so, and that third one wasn't too bad. But the second one was really, it was stressful. Like I said, they had to bring in the water. But we had it up and running. We were open again before the end of the day. So, and with the other two as well, we were closed for just like an hour or two with the other two. So when something like that, it's all hands on deck. We all come out there, and all the managers come in, and then all the owners and the employees that we can get, we all just work really hard to get it fixed. And so we've got a good team. But, after that, really, even after the second one, I was like, guys, we've got to change something. And they're like, oh, but we haven't had fires in years. I was like, yeah, but I own it now, so we're changing something. So
what did you do to help prevent them in the future, this happening?
So we put up some signage. Obviously, that was the first thing, like what to do if there is a fire. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is we just lowered the temperatures. And I was doing some research on this and just getting, reacquainted with it today. And I know we have Speed Queen. We have Alliance in our three stores, Speed Queen. I think the default temperature from the factory is 190. That's what my distributor said.
Yep, it is.
And then he installs it at 180. So they're already installing it 10 degrees lower. But 180 will catch stuff on fire. So we've lowered it. I think we're at 170 or 175 now. We're in that range. So I would recommend that just personally, because there's not a lot of existential risks to owning a laundromat. I don't think AI is going to put us out of business in the next 5 years or anything. I think people are still going to be using washers and dryers. So I think a fire is really one of your biggest existential risks. And I think you do everything you can to mitigate that. And if it's just like, we haven't had customers complain about it, no one even notices. And by the way, if you buy a Speed Queen residential, and you can just look this up online, it only goes up to 155 on the highest setting.
Oh.
And I have to think there's some liability thing there, because at 155, you're not starting many fires or any fires, right? And so if that's what they're putting in people's homes, I think there's
does it increase the dry time a little bit to turn down the temperature? Is that the reason?
Yeah, just a
Okay.
little bit. Yeah, it
Okay.
does. Yeah, you're looking at like maybe 5-10% more dry time.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can charge for that. but
You do charge
but
for
yeah,
that.
we haven't had any complaints about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Well, that's a nice plug for one, being attended,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
also have good insurance. I'm hoping you all had good insurance.
Yes, we did. And that was the thing I was thinking when you're driving to your laundromat and you're just thinking like, God, when was the last time I talked to my
Mhm.
insurance
Yep.
person? What does our insurance cover again? Like
Yep.
that is important.
It is.
And especially once you've owned it for a while, you forget about that kind of stuff or
Yep.
you just stop worrying about it. So I do think it's something you need to take care of, take it very seriously, get it done.
Yeah.
Yes.
And get it off your plate and talk to a professional about that. And yeah, luckily we were well insured. And in all three, situations, on one we just had to replace that double stack unit. We actually just replaced all the dryers; they were getting old anyway, so we just replaced bought all the quantum touch stuff with all the different languages.
Mhm.
We've been really happy with that. But uh, yeah, I think insurance is important, and I think setting the right temperature. I didn't know it was important, but I know now.
Mhm.
Well, for listeners out there, we have a couple episodes with Larry and Joel from the Laundromat Millionaire Insurance Program. So definitely check those out and check out our website. But they highly recommend make sure you check that insurance policy every year. And another big thing is make sure you're insured for the replacement cost of it, not just the cost, because
Yeah.
that's a biggie.
Don't skip on insurance. This is the one thing.
Well, and
one
I'll say
thing
this
that can
too,
get
and
you.
I know this isn't about insurance, but you can have replacement costs, the words replacement cost in your policies. That doesn't mean you have the dollar coverage, right? And that's what people can get really tricky because you buy equipment for $500,000 to outfit a store, and the replacement cost, you have replacement cost in there, but you only have coverage up to $650,000. Well, you built the store 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, 650 would have replaced everything. But fast forward today, we're having years where the price is going up 20%, unfortunately, and it might cost $1 million. Well, you may have replacement costs, but you only have up to 650,000, and it's going to cost today to replace that 900,000. So people don't think about the nuance of those things, of the price of things, and equipment has just gone through the roof since COVID. So just wanted to point that out there. You can have replacement cost in there. And if you don't have a dollar figure that's reflective of the replacement cost, they're only going to go up to the dollar value. So a lot of people don't realize that.
To give you a real life example, the Delaware store, which is going to do $1 million in revenue this year, costs $1 million to build and with the equipment and all in. And we've looked at doing a similar size store in a different area. We'll eventually open a fourth store. I'm not in a hurry, but it's like $2-3 million to do that store these days. Like it's doubled in 10 years. So yeah, it's not kind of sort of doubled, like it has doubled in the last 10 years. So yeah, I think that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I definitely want to make sure we get to Wash Dry Fold POS and talk a little bit about that. So back when we had Brian on the show back in 2021, we talked a lot about his story, why he created Wash Dry Fold POS. There weren't really other systems like it out there that were designed specifically for the laundry industry. There were similar ones for like the dry cleaning and other industries, but he really felt the need to create his own. But since then, there's been a lot of other companies come to the market. Just to name a few, there's Sense, there's Curbside, there's CleanCloud. So there's a lot of competition in the market now. But I know you all have been very innovative and trying to keep up with the changing demands of the laundry industry, because the laundry industry has changed a lot too. No longer just self-serve and no longer just coins, but now we have card payment systems and we have wash, dry, fold, drop off. We have pickup and delivery and all this kind of stuff. So there's been so many changes. I would like you to talk about how Wash, Dry, Fold POS has changed over the past few years to keep up with the changes. And then also, if you could talk some about how does someone coming to the industry choose a point of sale software? How do you all compare to the other ones out there? So first, what changes have there been?
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. So many changes, but everyone's got to be mobile now. You've got to be able to take out your phone and see who's in the store, who's clocked in or hasn't clocked in, how many orders are on the shelf, how many orders are done. are they doing the orders? Like, have they been clocked in for an hour and still not one is in the wash? And then to be able to check all 3 of your stores like that. And, you know, we have our managers check our stores. We don't do that, you know, but we have a lot of single store owners that do that. Or even like at the Clean Show, someone came up to me, he's like, look, I can see my stores. I can see who's doing what at my stores. And they're talking about how much they love that. So I think it's gone very mobile. We're cloud-based now. Integrations are huge these days. And, you know, it's got to work with, we actually built the first, you know, Speed Queen Alliance integration and all that, but it's become a much more integrated system. But as far as like, here's my take on the industry, and obviously it's biased. It may not be perfect, but I think there's probably 4 players have about 80% of the industry. And I think you just named the 4 players.
I'd agree with that.
CleanCloud is really the best. Well, maybe I shouldn't say what everyone's the best at, but they're quite good for dry cleaning. In fact, I refer a lot of people to CleanCloud for dry cleaning, and they're really good for international as well. They're in a lot of languages, a lot of countries. Now ours translates to a lot of languages, but they're actually based out of London. So, you know, if you've got an international store, I think that's a really good solution. And they're actually really nice people too. Really, really good guys.
Yeah, they've been on our podcast too.
I heard that episode. You guys did great.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, we've invited the Curbside guys, Matt and Aaron, but
we're still trying to convince them.
It's in holding.
They're super nice guys too. And you don't have to guess what their strength is. Curbside delivery, right? They're really delivery first. And then as you guys know, I'm sure you've talked a lot about Sense and they're kind of like revolutionizing the industry, right? They're really trying to be on the cutting edge and like, where do we fit in DoorDash and Uber and all that? Our take on it from day one was we're trying to solve real problems for real laundromat owners. And it's got to be easy to use, because one of the real problems you have is that your ladies are not software engineers. They're they're not tech savvy at all, it turns out. And so it's got to be just so easy to see a few buttons. You don't want to overwhelm them with a million options. But then you do still need to track, you know, what washers and dryers are they using, because they will get stuff confused if they're trying to do too many orders, or what if they get called in, their kid's sick at school or whatever, and they need to run. You need to be able to see exactly what they were doing when they were doing it. Where are those clothes now? And they will forget to get if the comforter needed more dry time than the clothes, they will forget the comforter still in the dryer. So you need something to remind them, go get the comforter. You need something that texts the customer when the clothes are ready, so that they can come get them back from you, right? And that wasn't a thing when we started in 2016, but we would call people and be like, hey, you got to come get your clothes. You know, we're full here. So now the software just texts them, and you can text them reminders through the software as well. So a lot has changed. It's really gotten more technology, but I think we've stayed true to solving real problems, making it very simple and easy to use. And then we do tend to be the most cost-effective solution. So we're about half the cost of some of the other solutions out there. So if you've looked and you've thought, oh, that's just way out of my price range, for us solving real problems with real laundromats, some laundromats do, you know, $3,000 to $5,000 in Wash Dry Fold per month, and that's a really good spot for us to service. Now we have a lot of, you know, we do $20,000 on it, and we have a store of 30 laundromats that they've got our point of sale system, all 30. And we have stores that do well over $1 million in revenue that has our point of sale system too. So it's very scalable, both in number of stores and then also in the amount of revenue that you're doing in your store. But to be kind of the OG and to be the industry default, or one of the industry defaults, you have to be affordable enough that a laundromat owner doing $3,000 actually can justify it, and that it will pay for itself with increased revenue and increased growth and decreased shrinkage. And I'm not talking about clothes, although it helps with that too, but decreased, you know, are they using the right washers and dryers, right? And you can see, like, one of our big features is like, as a percentage of machine starts, as a percentage of the ticket value, how many machine starts are we using? So if they're using like 50% of, let's say it's $100 orders and they do $50 worth of machine starts, like, what are they doing? And it turns out sometimes they're just going straight to the 80 pounders, even if they only have 30 pounds of clothes. And so it can help you identify efficiencies or inefficiencies in your system and create new efficiencies. But yeah, for us, I think we're the easiest to use. I've never heard anyone say that we're not the easiest to use, even if they've used all the other systems. And I think we are the most affordable by quite a bit. We have some, last thing, we do have like some exclusive features, like we have a machine repair ticket system that I'm talking about, like for the washers or the dryers, or even like your doors, if you have those sliding doors that break all the time. And so, like, for example, one of the tickets that came in, I usually don't even see the tickets. They just go straight to facilities manager. And so that really helps you set up your hierarchy. Like if you've got all the equipment, all these stores, you don't want to know every time something breaks. Even if he has to get a part ordered, I don't even know about it. I can go in and I can look at the tickets. I can see who he talked to, how many times that machine broke, which helps if you have new machines and they're, saying, oh, it's not the same machine. You can actually have a really nice history of all the machines.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, we got a little ticket in, the bill breaker was jammed. And so I had to go, because we typically we still don't trust our employees with the bill breakers. That's the one thing that we still do as the owners. So I had to go in and, put in new money to the bill breaker. But that's a good example of that's kind of an exclusive feature. So there are other reasons to go with our solution, but I think most people do it for the ease of use and for the affordability.
I do have a question. So in layman's terms, I know you talked about the API integration with Speed Queen, with Alliance machines. What does that mean to be integrated? So what does that enable your software to do since it's integrated? Because you're saying are the other platforms not integrated with
So
those?
when someone says integration,
Yes.
you have no idea what they mean, and there's no way to know based off that single word. So you have to ask them more questions. So we were the first, and I got to give Alliance a lot of credit here. We were the first ever system, and we I actually haven't written the press release for it, but we launched this at the Clean Show. So this is a very new thing. But ever since we started, the dream was you just select the machines that you want to start from the point of sale systems, and they just start automatically. You just go load them. Well, that was never possible until just recently. So we now have that functionality. So on the little board that shows where all the orders are, you would just grab let's say you want to start washer number 7 and 8. You just tap 7 and 8. If you have Hitch or Speed Queen, it will actually start it through that Insights program, and it ties that vend value to that order as well. So you would see as a percentage, let's say it's $5, per vend, and it's a $40 order. So you'll see what they started as a total of the. Now, why would you even care to track that? It's because you don't want them starting machines for friends and family, or if they've got a little business on the side. But in the past, even if you said an integration a year ago, if you had a LaundryWorks integration a year ago, that would mean that, you start the LaundryWorks machines with the card.
Yes.
And then the system tracks how much you've used. And then for us at our stores, there's $2 left on the card. I want my $2 back. No, that's the bonus money. Remember, you put in 20, you get a $2 bonus. But you can buy snacks, you can buy soaps, you can buy anything here at the counter. We'd love to sell you, if you need some soap or a soda or whatever. And that really helps them get the balance off the card if they want that. That's what the integration used to mean. Now it's that, but also with the WashLinks app, it will actually push the order to the WashLinks, the employee app, and they just select that order and then go start the machines with the WashLinks app. So we actually have built that machine start integration with Alliance, which is the first major manufacturer to do it. So no one else has that with any other point of sale system or with any other manufacturer. So we're that's the only place where you can start Alliance machines through the Wash Dry Fold POS. Now, if you have LaundryWorks and you're using the WashLinks app, which I know a lot of your listeners are, that works with Sense or Wash Dry Fold POS now. So we've built that. The second people to do that, obviously, Sense was the first.
Because I know, so we have Sense and LaundryWorks, and I know our people can start the machines, but it's, I guess, through the LaundryWorks, not through Alliance.
Through the card.
Through the reader. Yeah.
It's through our Sense readers, I guess, is the reason we can. So we don't have the Alliance integration, but we have, I guess, because of the Sense integration. So it's a little different. So I wasn't sure what was different. So the big key is that you can start the machines from Wash Dry Fold POS because of that alliance integration. Is it only with their newest machines? Like if the machines are
It is. You
okay.
have to have like the insights program. So it
Okay.
has to be, I think it's like last maybe 5 years worth of machines
Okay.
about that. And to your point, and I think this is really good for the audience as well, if you already have the LaundryWorks system, then maybe you just want that real basic integration where they're just starting the cards with the machines. Maybe that's all you need. And we have hundreds of stores that do that. But the next level is then if you use WashLinks, which is their little employee app, which you have to pay for, but it's worth it. And that'll actually start the actual machines and then tie it to the orders. And so they don't just have a card that could get lost or that they could hand to a self-serve employee or to a self-serve customer for a little something.
Well, I know for us, even like if we have, so we do a lot of drop off and delivery. And if we have a customer come back and say, oh, you lost my blue sweatshirt, we can go into the order and we can look on our cameras and be like, okay, well, we know that blue sweatshirt was placed in machine number 38 at 10:52 a.m. So we can pull up our cameras for that time and be like, oh, there's blue sweatshirt, follow it through the cameras. Or sometimes, oh, there wasn't a blue sweatshirt and they're mistaken.
It's under their bed.
So there are some good,
just as often.
Yes. So it is handy to know with every order, like within the POS system, know who processed it, what time they processed it, what machine they processed it in. And that integration you have allows that, right?
It does. And also you're getting to what I think probably the primary feature that has made Wash Dry Fold POS from day one, which is that order tracker it's called a Kanban or Kanban. Some people call it that. But if you've heard of Six Sigma or lean production method, it's all the same thing where basically you want to be able to see at any given time as a manager where every single order is in the process. Is it on the shelf to do? Because that, affects staffing in the future. Is it done on the shelf? That affects storage. But also every time they're moving from the wash to the dry, they're just moving that over and you get a little timestamp. So that works really well with the cameras because then you already have the timestamps. You don't have to watch and see like the whole day. You can just go to that timestamp and you can see it's like within a minute of when they moved it over. And so that really is, I think we do that best. And we also had that first. And so everyone else has kind of come up with their own version of that. But I think that's still really our major differentiator. But then it even goes a step further, like when you have the WashLinks app. So instead of having to tap the machine to start it, you would just tap your phone on the washer and dryer that you want to start, and you would actually tap the order then on your phone.
Okay.
And so it's not a huge difference, but like one of the guys at the Clean Show that bought a store, shout out to Joe if you're watching, he was having this issue at his stores where it's just one card and it's like, does it go around from pocket to pocket to person? And wouldn't it be a lot better if it was tied to their individual device that they have to Face IDs them, and that's how you start the machines. And it's funny talking to 3,000 laundromat owners over 10 years, because I used to do sales calls every day. The biggest surprise I've heard is or the biggest, weird kind of thing that you would see as a trend would be this employee theft of people stealing this way. So they want to talk to us for one of three reasons. Either they're just opening a store and they need a point of sale system. Great, perfect time to talk to us. They already have a store and they're up to maybe that $3,000 or they're approaching that in Wash Dry Fold, and pen and paper is just getting really cumbersome and really there's mistakes are being made, reviews are being left.
Even better, do it before you're up to 3,000 making all the mistakes. But yeah.
Yes, that's what we recommend. Yes, but
we do too.
That doesn't always
happen that way.
People, right. People tend to feel the pain first before they go looking for the solution. I wish they would find us before they felt the pain. But the third one, and this is the hardest one to get out of people, and you can always tell because they just aren't giving you one of the other common ones. So why'd you really call us today? What do you really need a point of sale system for? They're like, well, I had a manager we had to let go, and he was doing a little business on the side where he was, starting machines with the Wash Dry Fold, little card. And, it's not always LaundryWorks. It could be any of the other, Spider Wash, ESD. It's usually ESD. But Fast Card, Laundry Card, not to talk trash. ESD is great. We just did the machine start integration with them as well. So we're really kind of working with everyone, and we try and be agnostic there. But there's a lot of people that have this issue where they've had a manager that they let go, and this guy's stolen like 20, 30,000. It's always in that 20 to 30,000 range. And so if they tell me like they've had theft, if they tell me how much, I already know how they stole. If it's 200 or 300, they stole some coins, they stole some cash, whatever. If it's 20 or 30,000, they were running a business on the side using that card. And I've even heard like they'll just have a guy slip them a 20 and they just start machines for them. Yep. And like, how do you catch that? Because they have to have a way to start the machines, right? You can't just not let them start the machines. They can't do wash, dry, fold without that. So the only way that we have found is to really track the order ratios. Like, so if you're doing $1,000 worth of wash, dry, fold orders that week, you should have about $300 in machine starts as an employee that is specifically
so
tied
that's
to
your
you.
number is about 30%.
Yeah, that's at our stores. And I've seen it's between 25 and 35. And in fact, I think 30 is usually on the higher side, probably just because that's where we're priced. But 30% is a pretty good average across the board. 30% comes up a lot. I would say 30% of our gross revenue is wash, dry, fold, right? And then 30% of our wash, dry, fold is commercial. So, and then if you're doing machine starts, 30% of the wash, dry, fold order should be the same as the then start. Now, that's not your real COGS, because your real COGS are pennies to start those machines.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't track pennies. That doesn't make any sense. So, so you don't even want them to see your real COGS. You want to track the VIN value.
So that 30% is actually the retail price of that machine. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So the machine starts. So if it was a 40 or let's say it's $100 order, just for easy math, then you should be starting $30 worth of machines. And that also too allows you to say, well, I don't care if they started the 20 pounders because maybe we had 5 20 pounders open and the 80 pounders were busy. So I don't care which machines they use. I'm just looking at the startage overall. But then, like I said, with that 80 pounder, I had a lady who was, putting small orders in very large machines. It will help you catch that because the revenue wasn't large enough. And that also works. You can't do it by the pound because you're doing a lot of comforters, which you have to sell by the piece. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners know this, but you don't sell comforters by the pound because people will just try and sneak them into the bag. And then you're like, we have to charge individually for this because it needs its own washer and its own dryer. If you are charging by the pound for comforters, stop today. Don't do that.
Definitely. Oh my goodness. You're leaving
crazy
tons of money out there if you're doing that.
Tons of money on the table. And it's just not even worth it by the pound because they'll just throw a t-shirt in there with their comforter and then you've got 2 separate washers, 2 separate dryers.
So for our listeners out there, how do they get a demo of how to use Wash Dry Fold POS and kind of its capabilities?
Yeah, we actually have put some time, although we probably need to redo our demos just because we make so many updates all the time. But there's quite a few demo videos online that you can watch to just get the basic vibe of it. And then once you've kind of seen it, and I don't dissuade people from looking at the other solutions too, because if you're going all in on delivery and that's the only thing you care about, we may not be the best fit for you. But if you have a laundromat and you need something that's easy to use, you need something that's affordable, and sure, maybe you want to do some DoorDash and Uber, we've got those integrations and all that. And we do delivery as well. But I think going online, watching the basic videos and just getting a vibe for all the major options that are out there is a really good first step. And then when you're ready to get into the pricing, which, also changes from year to year, then you schedule that appointment and we will walk you through, whatever you want to know about the software and especially the pricing and the business model and all that. And I mean, it's very simple. It's very affordable. It has to be. And then, for credit card processing as well, I think that's the one kind of gotcha thing in the industry. Not going to say any names or anything like that, but I do think it's easy to forget the credit card processing costs something. And I know even like when Liberty Laundry was young, we used to go through Heartland. Even Wash Dry Fold first started, we didn't know anything about it. And we just referred people to Heartland. They were charging like 5%. And we're like, that's crazy. We didn't even know that was crazy. Industry standard. So most of the options out there are between 4 and 5%. And we're at 2.65%. So we just try and sell that at cost, make it affordable, and then it's just one more reason to actually, buy the software from us, which is what we want to sell. So I always encourage people to remember credit card processing is not free. And when I say it's 4%, it makes it sound like that company's, some monster that's taking 4% of your revenue. It's like, no, Visa charges, like if you got a Visa business card, that's 2.5% that the customer is getting in rewards. I've got a card where I get 3% on every transaction. So it's like the costs on these things are almost 3%. So most of that goes to the card issuing banks and all that. So it's really that spread between 2.5 or 2.65%, which is where we're at. And then that top of the line is maybe like that 5%. So you want to get as close to that bottom number as you can.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything. I'm looking to see.
This has been fantastic. We appreciate you reaching out to us and offering to do this. This has been fantastic, doing kind of an update on the episode with Brian, which is once again, kind of a little old nowadays. But we recommend.
Brian's was more on starting the Wash Dry Fold POS, and now I feel like you brought us up to date with the current competitive market with Wash Dry Fold POS, and then also all the new things you all have learned by becoming laundromat owners yourselves.
Yes,
and learning to eventually get it as a semi-passive business, that it is not semi-passive from day one.
Not when you buy it, no.
But that's that with the right integration of a good team, the right processes, the right technology, that you can get it to be a semi-passive business like we have and like you all have. So I think those are our keynotes for our audience.
Yeah, I always say we want to be really careful here at Laundromat Millionaire not to mislead people, but we do want to inspire people. And the truth is, I'm not saying they're bad people, but there are people out there kind of poo-pooing on the passive, the semi-passive, that doesn't exist. And I was like, that's kind of a nuanced conversation, right? It's not not a binary thing. It's like, what I always tell people is the business obviously needs somebody to run it. But the what was preached in the industry 15 years ago when I got into it is that you had to do that, right? And if you didn't, you were a bad owner and irresponsible. And of course, people were stealing. And what I tell people is, like, when things were all cash, that was more true, right? It was harder to have audit systems and hold people accountable. And now that technology has come into our industry, we and you guys are proof that you can put those audit functions in place, lean on it. And it's never perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. There's risk in business. We have to be able to, be willing to accept that risk. But there is something to be said for somebody like you all, and obviously us. We own 5 different businesses now. So you guys are running Wash Dry Fold POS, and you're running your chain of stores with a team. And we want to inspire people. We want to show people that it is possible, and we are not crazy. And whether it's on a panel at a conference or the Clean Show or whatever, somebody says passive or semi-passive. I like the word flexible. That's a word that I just I think it's a very flexible business, but we don't want to lose people, because I think that's sometimes, like, especially when they're just watching a podcast and maybe they don't know us and they don't know you guys, and we're just people talking, and they're like, yeah, that guy's full of crap, whatever. There's no way it's semi-passive. It's like, no, we're not here to brag. We're here to actually show you that there's another level to this, and if anything, multiple levels nowadays. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing that authentic side of you guys' journey. I know you mentioned it. I just want to throw this in there in the same semi-passive conversation. When you guys acquired the store, you said you and Brian I think you said both of you worked full-time in the laundromats to get it semi-passive. Now, it was already a
well-running store,
well-running stores,
laundromat,
but you had to make it your own. I'm curious, just real quick, short answer. How long did you guys work full-time in the business before you were able to start to kind of back out a little bit? Because I'm sure that was the goal from the beginning.
I think probably 6 months was really intense. Okay. And then, month 7 probably got less intense. Yeah. And then even, the hours that I talked about today, even those were double maybe a year ago. Right. So we just try and
it's been a journey.
What else? What else can we get off our plate? Yes. It's the journey. Yeah. And it takes a while. Yeah. You have to self-improve. You have to hire. You have to learn how to hire. You have to
learn how to delegate. But that's some people's issue, learn how to delegate.
Yes. Learn how to say no. We're reiterating all the things of the episode now.
what's really cool is, you guys, I think you said we're on the 8th episode, right?
Uh-huh.
The 8th one was the one with Brian Henderson. And now we're like, this is episode maybe 110.
I was going to say maybe 108. So maybe 100 episodes between them. But
I bet we had sold maybe 200 or 300 systems when we were on it. It may say in that episode.
It probably does. Yeah.
We're right at about 1,200 now.
I was getting ready to ask you that. Yeah. 1,200. Nice.
It's crazy. It's a journey. And to your point, these things don't happen. Yeah. Are you going to buy something that's, even if it's turnkey, is it semi-passive day one? No. You're going to have to, if it was that semi-passive, I don't know that they would have sold it, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to be paying a really decent multiple if it's really that semi-passive. So, I think you're absolutely right. It's a journey and it's a grind and it takes a long time. But absolutely, if you want to own a laundromat or a chain of laundromats and not do it every day. I know a guy that owns 30, Matt Nichols. Shout out to Matt, one of my favorite customers. But he owns 30. One of them is just like a commercial processing plant. The other 29 laundromats. They're beautiful laundromats. Spin City, Ocala, if you're interested. But he's got our point of sale system in all 30. He's got like a whole team. I love his manager, Hope. We work with his whole team and he's got people doing it for him and he's done a great job. He's got 10 kids too, by the way, which I don't know how you do 30 laundromats and 10. He's a superhuman.
Wow. Yeah.
I can't do that.
That's impressive. We have 3 and it's, man, it's shortened my life. I love them, but it's shortened my life.
Yeah. I've got one dog and she's in charge of me. So I don't think I could do 10 kids. I think I'd have the time of the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, my friend, thank you so much for carving time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy. Congratulations, by the way. And we saw Brian at the Clean Show real quickly. We were both running in opposite directions. But Brian, I know you'll watch this. Congratulations to you guys too. I'm proud of you guys. Brian probably remembers the CLA forum days where we would get in there and chat back and forth. And that's got to be, 12, 13 years ago now. And that was the only way we had of networking. The podcast didn't exist. And even a lot of the conferences didn't exist back then. The Clean Show
all the Facebook groups and all that kind of stuff either.
Yeah, it was just a very different time back then. But me and Brian grew up in the industry together. I don't know if I think he's a little bit younger than me. But we got in the industry around the same time. I was an owner struggling and he was an employee trying to help his dad build their businesses, and they were a few years ahead of us. But a lot of back and forth, and he's done a lot to help a lot of people in the industry. We have too, and obviously you guys are too. So we need more of that in this industry. We need less infighting and less ego competitions, and more just 100%. Sharing and giving, and we can all win. It's going to be okay. It's not a zero-sum game, guys.
Oh, absolutely. I want the more laundromat owners that do better, the more buy our system, honestly. Sure. So we're happy about that. And you reminded me, I got a shout out to Sharon Brinks as well, who has also been on this journey with us and really helped build that alliance API. We were actually using, she's been using it in her store for like a year.
Okay.
But, we had to like get it all the bugs worked out. With Alliance, it's got to be good before it's public.
Sure.
So
sure.
She's really helped us. So, and I know she's been on the podcast too. I actually heard her last episode as well. So no, I think people like that in the industry, that they really help move the industry forward, like yourself and like Sharon and Brian. So no, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys having me on, and you guys have just been a pleasure to talk to.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we appreciate the time, man. Listen, for everyone back home, I'm going to say it again for the 3rd or 4th time. Go back and check out episode 8. Full disclosure, we were newbies back then, just like you've been newbies in laundromats.
It's probably rough.
It's pretty rough. In a long time. So like Brian brought some good value. I remember the episode being really great, but the post-production work and even me and Carla's interviewing skills, they weren't what they are today. Not that it's anything special today. So cut us a little grace.
It's a journey.
That was 4.5 years ago. But anyway, go back and check it out.
That's the whole point. It's a journey.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we always say, my philosophy in life and business, Ian, is just get up every day and try to be better tomorrow than I was yesterday. Like, it's a very simple philosophy. It doesn't involve anyone but me. I'm only competing with me.
That's like the purpose of life, to self-improve.
That's right.
I mean, it's one of them. I don't
Totally
get it when I
agree.
talk to someone who doesn't actively self-improve. To me, that's what really keeps me going and brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, completely.
And,
Yeah. Awesome, my friend.